All right, I think we can get started. Megan, ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, let's kick it off. All right, so today's topic is crafting personalized journeys for first year members. And today, what we're really going to talk about is the value in letting your members sort of choose their own journey. Like I said, I'm Ashley Wetcher. I'm the Director of Client Success here at PropFuel. I'm joined by the wonderful Megan Roloff. And today's really all about the wonderful work she's done in PropFuel around her new member onboarding. So Megan, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Roloff, and I'm the Director of Member Services and Engagement at the National Association for Gifted Children. Just a little bit of background on NAGC. We're a professional society with about 2,800 members that are dedicated to supporting the unique needs of gifted learners. So our members are K through 12 teachers, administrators, higher education professionals, researchers, parents, and advocates. And then to just give you a little bit of context of why we took this approach, before I discovered associations, I worked as a child life specialist in hospitals, providing social and emotional support services to children and families. The education and training for that career includes a blend of human development, psychology, family systems, and a core tenet of that work is meeting people where they are. So while now, as an association professional, my day to day is very different than working in hospitals, that time has permanently impacted my worldview. And I'm really excited to show you how NAGC has leveraged some fantastic technology from our friends at PropFuel to do just that, meet members where they are and let them choose their own adventures.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. And like I said, so for those who have joined, since I introduced myself, I'm the Director of Client Success here at PropFuel, and I have had the privilege of being Megan's Client Success Manager for what has it been? Over a year now, Megan, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Perfect. All right. So for those of you who are new to what PropFuel is, we're an insight and engagement system. So we oftentimes, when we kind of talk about what PropFuel does, we've heard people call us a survey system. We're not. We've also been referred to sometimes as an email system. Yes, we are, but we're more than that. So what we are is a system designed to gain insight and drive engagement. And we do that through three main channels today. So we have the email channel. That's about 99.9% of our clients are using that channel. That was our very first channel. And then we introduced SMS, so text messages, and about 15 to 20% of our clients are using text messaging. And then now today, brand new, we have website interactions. We're really excited about that, Megan. I know you just heard about that. So it's taking what you do in email, what you can do in text message, and now putting it on your website. And I believe Brittany or Robson are going to put a link in the chat to where you can learn more about that. So we'll talk about all of those different channels today. The process we use to drive engagement is really simple, and it's founded on probably the same process you've used if you've ever had a conversation. And it's called Ask, Capture, Act. You can see it down there at the bottom of your screen. And really what that means is you ask questions, you capture insight. Most importantly, you're capturing actionable insight on individuals. So I think a lot of times when we talk about capturing insight, we think, oh, in the aggregate, like a survey. Yes, we give you that aggregate data, but really the value in PropFuel lies in that actionable insight at the individual level. So what does Ashley think, need, or feel? What does Megan think, need, or feel? And then we act on that. And typically we do that in an automated fashion. So we have actions such as showing text on a landing page or alerting someone on your team to follow up based on what someone says. Maybe you want to send a follow-up email to the member. And sometimes it's all three of those and more. But really we want to focus on that actionable insight, that automated interaction so that you can free up the humans to do the stuff they need to do and then let PropFuel kind of work in the background. All right, so I want to jump into today's topic by asking a question. So if you'll pop in the chat, do you currently have a new member onboarding program in place? All right, I'm seeing lots and lots of yeses, a couple of no's, a sort of. Okay, yep. Awesome. All right, so I think this is going to be, especially for those sort of and the no's, this is going to be something definitely valuable to you. Even for the yeses, I think what we want you to come away from this with is kind of a new way of thinking about your new member onboarding for your members. All right, so I think as association professionals, I probably don't have to tell any of you why new member onboarding matters, but I do want to share some statistics that I read recently that I think do kind of apply to each of these reasons for why they matter. So that very first one, first impressions matter. So 80% of new members decide within the first year whether to renew their membership. That's a statistic from Marketing General's Membership Marketing Benchmark Report. MGI is one of our really great partners, but it really does tell us first impressions matter. So you want to set the stage right away for that relationship with the member. The other one, new members are 4 times more likely to renew if they engage with at least 3 member benefits early on. I got that from ASAE's foundation. And really what that tells me is early engagement drives retention. You want to get members engaging in the benefits that they care about, so that what that individual cares about right away. And then the last one, associations with a structured onboarding program see up to an 82% increase in renewal rates. Anecdotally, I had heard that, but 82% increase. Megan, I don't know if that's like mind-boggling to you as much as it was to me, but what that tells me is that really tailoring, or what we like to call personalizing the member journey, really does make a difference. So we'll talk about that today. All right, and then before you jump into your campaign, I want to talk about some of the pain points associated with traditional new member onboarding journeys, especially the ones that I see a lot of times when clients come to us. And when I refer to traditional, typically what I'm talking about is, yes, it's campaigns that are built outside of PropFuel, but really it's more so campaigns that are not using that ask, capture, and act method. So the first one, lack of personalized engagement. So whether it's because of a lack of tools, maybe it's limited data, or something we all have is limited time to build a fully individual journey, typically traditional new member onboarding isn't built in a way that provides a really tailored experience to each individual. And that can sometimes lead to overwhelming your new members. So I think a lot of us fall into the habit of telling members about all of the wonderful benefits available to them. But I think we tend to forget that it can feel, especially for a new member, like drinking from a fire hose, for lack of a better term. So I'll give you kind of an example. I'll illustrate it. So the traditional new member onboarding approach that I typically see goes something like this. And I've built these in the past when I was in membership at associations. So the member joins and they're added to a cadence. It's a handful of emails. Maybe it takes them through the first 3 months of their membership. And in email 1, we want to tell them about all of the things that they can engage with. So typically there's, usually a letter from the president or the CEO. There's a bunch of information about all of the benefits, education, savings, publications, everything you can think of. And there's probably tons of hyperlinks. And then in email 2, we want to get a little bit more narrow. So it's a focus on events. So there's lots of information about all of the events that they can attend, links to each individual event to register. Maybe you branch them out to the full calendar so that they can start putting stuff on their calendar. And then email 3 comes along, and maybe you want to do some details about publications. So, whether it's publications that they can subscribe to, or publications where they can publish in, some associations, but you're getting, narrow, and each email is a specific benefit or resource. And then emails 4 and 5, similar. But then by email 6, by that point, you're kind of left wondering, all right, why aren't they clicking? Why aren't they attending the events? Why aren't they logging into their profile and changing all of the data that I'm telling them to do? Why aren't they giving me their address? Chances are they're overwhelmed, and that can typically lead to inaction. So thinking of it like drinking from a fire hose really leads to the inaction. Another pain point I see a lot is inefficient processes. So Megan, I know we've talked about this. There's nothing worse than having to rely on manual processes. Yet we always have to do it. So either because it's a lack of an integration or poor data, typically manual or disjointed processes are time consuming. So definitely a pain point with a lot of new member onboarding. And then lastly, lack of immediate value. So I think traditional onboarding, for all of the reasons that I've said, doesn't always deliver immediate value for the member. It's difficult for you to convey everything you want to early on in the relationship, and that can typically leave members wondering why they joined in the first place. Megan, I'm wondering, do any of these pain points resonate with you?
Oh, all of them. But I would say, the manual and disjointed definitely speaks to me. Before we set up this campaign with Prop Fuel, we had two emails basically that had to be manually done. It was happening monthly because that's all our small team could handle. And so not only was it time consuming on our staff side, but there was also a crazy lag for new members. And we're missing that key right away, right when we've got their attention moment that was really hurting us.
Yeah. Yep. And I want to move to the chat for just a second. So lots of good comments in here, but similar to what you're saying, Megan. So Karina says, our challenge is that our members are technically the organizations, not the employees. But the employees are the ones that need to interact with our offerings. So we send them a new email, or we send them an email when a new organization joins, but there's nothing for the employee. And we don't even know when that happens usually. So it's a whole host of these different pain points kind of wrapped into there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how important it is to make sure you're talking to the people instead of looking at it as an organization. All right, so that's where the power of personalization comes in. So I think, for us at Prop Fuel, we believe personalization does two really important things. So the first one is it meets your members' expectations. I think as association professionals, that's really what we're in the business of, is making sure we're meeting their expectations. And the problem with that is today's members really expect a personalized experience from day one. I mean, we're living in an increasingly personalized society. It's, we're a Netflix society at this point. And so people don't just want information anymore. They want it to be relevant. They want it to be engaging, and they want it to feel like it's tailored to them. And I know that's what we're going to talk about today. The other one is it allows them to choose their own adventure. So love this example. I love that this is the title that we landed on, because if you've ever read those choose your own adventure books as a child, I know I did, the Goosebumps books, where you're reading along and then by page 10, it says, oh, you have a choice to make. If you want to save the princess, jump to page 20. But if you want to slay the dragon, jump to page 50. Really, we should be thinking of onboarding in the same way. It's more than just a process. It's really a customized journey. It's a pathway that adapts to each member's unique needs, interests, and most importantly, their pace. So it cuts out all the noise to ensure they're finding value in the association right from the start. All right, one more question, then I'm going to turn it over to Megan. So I'm interested to know what problems are you facing with new member onboarding? So what are some of the pain points, whether they're ones that I put up on the screen or something that we didn't even think about? And I'll move back over to the chat. Looks like some stuff is coming in. Yeah, so Janet said something similar. So when a firm becomes a member, all of their employees become members. So the challenge is connecting with those individual employees if the firm doesn't proactively provide everyone's contact information. Yep. Someone said, our system is garbage, so we can only do limited things. Yeah, going back to limited data, limited time. Yeah. Awesome. So I really encourage you to keep having this chat, reply to people in the chat as we're talking through this, but chances are, I think we could bucket these into some very similar pain points. All right, Megan, all you.
All right. Well, before I dive into the example from NAGC, I just hope you can humor me as I spend a few minutes on human development theory. As I mentioned in my intro, that is my background and very much the lens through which I view association work. How many folks are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Show me in the chat if anybody knows what I'm talking about there. Maybe. Well, if you are, this will be a quick refresher. If this is new to you, I think this is a really important idea to build into your work around membership. So the idea with Maslow is very simple, but hard to implement. And the main core of it is if you don't meet people where they are and help them solve their immediate problem, none of the other great things that you have to offer matter. So in Maslow's world for human development, that means you need to meet their basic needs first. Things like food, water, shelter, security, safety. If my basic needs aren't being met, you're going to have a really hard time getting me to care about higher level psychological needs, things like relationships, prestige, feelings of accomplishment. And oh my goodness, it's going to be near impossible to get me to engage on self-actualization needs, things like fulfilling my potential or creative pursuits. But on the flip side, if I'm in a place where I'm ready to focus on self-actualization needs and you're talking to me about basic needs, I might check out because you're addressing a problem that I've already solved. Now, how does this apply to associations? Well, during onboarding, we tend to talk to members the same way. We talk about member benefits the same way. We present them in the same order to every individual. But what if instead of using onboarding as an information dump, this was an opportunity to build a relationship and show value right away by responsibly providing solutions to members' self-identified problems? And by doing so, what if we truly met them where they were rather than making assumptions? So NAGC set out to do just this. On the next slide, you're going to see our onboarding timeline. And as you can see, it's pretty extensive. In addition to what's outlined here, we also have additional one-off touch points. We'll have extra messages to new members about orientation events that we host, and we'll also throughout the year put out extra messages about timely member benefits, things that come up because of where we are in our annual cycle. Now, with this standard timeline that you're looking at, though, we had a few priorities. First, as I already mentioned, it had to be automated. We use anniversary join and renewal dates. So for us, various onboarding and renewal messages are going out just about every day of the year. Additionally, we're a small team. Our full-time staff is 6 people, and of that 6, 2 of us are dedicated to membership. The other priority when creating this is that we wanted to maintain close contact with new members throughout their first year. You'll see the majority of the standard onboarding messaging happens in that first month, but we continue to follow new members right up until their renewal messaging begins. The later messages are more like check-ins rather than sharing benefits. So it gives them an opportunity to say if they're having a problem. PropFuel sends us a message to our membership team right away, so we can get back to that person and help them with whatever their issue is. We also include a Net Promoter Score question in that series so that we can identify at-risk first-year members and intervene. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, on the next slide, you're going to see our initial welcome message. This happens right after joining. And I know the instinct here, and Ashley even shared that kind of the common practice has been an information dump of here are all of the things that you can now do. We went in a different direction with this. Rather than outlining all the benefits and resources they can use, we kept it super simple and gave them 3 things they can do right now that add value. And most importantly, that do not require an additional transaction. So in our example, we have them confirm their mailing address. Our memberships include print publications, so it's really important we get good mailing addresses right up front. We also have them check our event calendar, where we have free to member networking and learning events going on all year round. And lastly, we have them update their profile so they can connect with their peers right away. Again, super simple, very concrete, tangible things they can do that will add value to their member experience. But now we're going to move on to week 1. And this is where things start to get a little bit more fun, and we introduce Choose Your Own Adventure. At this point, we start segmenting by member type. That initial welcome email goes to everyone, but we know there are some real differences in the motivations that bring our different member types to us. So we do this to ensure, one, they only receive information about the benefits that are included with their specific membership, but it also gives us the opportunity to reframe how we present certain benefits. The benefit might be the same, but I have what we call our premier members who are professionals in education. I have parent members, and I have student members who are usually graduate or doctoral students in education. These three groups have really different motivations for coming to us, and they are going to be using the same benefits in different ways to solve different problems. So by splitting things out here, we again are having an early opportunity to refine the language and meet them where they are based on who we know them to be. Now, the other nice thing in this week one email is rather than diving straight into educating new members about their benefits, we ask them to tell us what their top priority is. Why guess when we can know with certainty and then immediately prove to them, I see you, I understand you, and guess what? I have the solution to your problems. So when they select an option, they immediately go to a web page. You're going to see this purple screenshot there that outlines the benefits associated with that priority. They'll also get a follow-up email with that same information. So what we're seeing here, the purple one, that's what our folks see when they choose accessing resources as their top priority, or I'm sorry, find community as their top priority. And then that follow-up email is what they get when they choose accessing resources. Now, a few things that I want to note in these examples, it intentionally centers the member, not NAGC, the organization. They're also action-oriented. So here's a question. I don't know about you, but my members are super busy and it can be really, really hard to get and keep their attention when there's professional demands, personal life demands, everything else going on in their lives. Anyone else feeling that? Looking at the chat. Oh yeah, okay. we're agreeing. So I can't take the risk and expect my members to do the mental gymnastics to jump from here's this great thing that's part of your membership all the way over to here's what's in it for you. So we did that mental gymnastics for them. Rather than saying NAGC offers Engage, our online community for networking, we went with head over to Engage to see the most recent community conversations. This is your space to ask questions, share best practices, celebrate wins, and get feedback on challenges. It's immediately clear what's in it for them. All right, so we've made it through the first week of membership. They chose their top priority. They got specific, member-centered, action-oriented information that addresses that priority. Where do we go from here? Well, now our choose your own adventure path starts to get a little interesting. We could just send a repeat of a similar message to week one and give them all 4 priority areas again, but that doesn't really show that we know them or that we remember what they just told us last week. So instead, this is where the power of PropFuel's workflows comes in really handy. Depending on whatever that member selected for their top priority in week one, a workflow slots them into the appropriate week 2 campaign that acknowledges their top priority and presents them an opportunity to choose which of the 3 remaining priority areas they want to focus on. Once they make a selection, it works just like week 1. They get a web page immediately with specific information and then a follow-up email with that same information for easy access. Now we're going to move on to week 3, and we're starting to get kind of complicated here. You can see how the paths are branching on that flow chart. We want new members to receive an email with just the 2 remaining priority areas, but that does mean we have 12 different journey paths running right now. And then if we jump ahead to week 4, oh boy, we've got a lot of emails going on right now. Members get an email with just their one last lowest priority because we want to make sure everyone gets all the information, even if it's in the order that they choose. But yeah, we're dealing with 24 possible paths now. But don't forget, I said earlier, I have 3 member types. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see I'm actually dealing with 72 potential journey paths because my parents and student members need different information or information framed differently than my professional folks. So let's move on from the scary slide. And at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, Megan, are you nuts? Why on earth would you do this to yourself? I hear you about meeting members where they are and building the relationship and showing value and giving a personalized experience. That all sounds great. But this seems like a whole lot of work that I don't have time for. And yeah, I was asking a lot of those same questions of myself when I was dreaming this up. I think Ashley was probably asking me some of those questions when I was first dreaming this up. And so, you kind of have to think through what would make this worthwhile. And there's a simple but compelling answer, and it's data. By setting this all up in PropFuel, I am constantly getting real-time data from new members, and that's proving to be invaluable. First, there's the aggregate data. I don't know about you, but I've worked at more than one association where well-meaning staff and volunteer leaders were making decisions based on assumptions or outdated information. And it's so easy to fall victim to things we just know to be true, but no one actually knows how or why we know it anymore. Best case scenario, someone did the member research once upon a time, years have passed, the world has changed around us, and we just haven't done the work to see if what we knew was true before still is. Worst case scenario, someone who is well respected and trusted, it could be a staff member, it could be a volunteer leader, they made an offhand comment once and it became gospel. I've lived both of these and neither of them are great. So what were our assumptions at NAGC? We assumed that Premier and student members only join for professional development and parents only join for resources. Our members are in education, so let's treat this like a test. If it were a test, we would have failed, having only one of the member groups correct. And we were right on the parents, and they're one of our smaller member groups. So if we scale that out, best case scenario, we were getting an 8%. We were meeting 8% of our new members where they were. Not great. But with this aggregate data coming in, we're able to use it to inform our communications about other programs and events that have nothing to do with member onboarding. We're no longer guessing. The other valuable thing about this data is it's like an early warning system. We'll be able to see if there is a sudden shift in new member priorities. We're in education. There are lots of conversations happening about the future of education. That could mean very different things that our members need from us in the future. So if I see some of these priorities starting to move around, that's a good indicator to me that as a team and as an organization, we might need to have some conversations about changing our organizational priorities to meet the evolving needs.
Yeah, Megan, I want to interrupt you there and just like make sure everyone heard that, because that's such a big thing that I don't think we have when we're not using the conversational engagement approach, is that real time data. It's living, it's breathing, just like your members and their needs. So something we talk about a lot at PropFuel.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And again, being able to see that early, and you don't want these things to get too far down the line that you're playing catch up with your members. If we can catch it at this point that needs are changing, then we can evolve and respond as an organization before we're getting left behind. All right, the other piece on data that I wanted to talk about is the individual member data. On this slide, you're going to see a snapshot of one of my new members. And the great thing with the PropFuel data is I can go back and I can see Their top priority from when they wanted to join was accessing resources. If I wanted, I can pull a list of this member and all the other members in that time period that had the same top priority and deliver them an extra touch point. Maybe I had a great new resource come out last month and I just want to give them a little extra nudge. Hey, I know this is important to you. Here's this great new thing in case you missed it. Capturing this kind of data means I can continue providing a personalized member experience outside of onboarding. All right, so moving on, maybe I've convinced you that the data you can get from this approach is worthwhile. The next question you might be asking yourself or yelling at me through the computer is, how can I make this work without making myself crazy? Well, lucky for you, I've lived this and have some tips and tricks to help make this work, even if you have a small team or are short on time. My first piece of advice is going to be to group your member benefits in buckets by the type of need they address or the type of problem they solve. At NAGC, we were lucky. We already had our buckets established because we use them in member acquisition campaigns. We use them in our renewal messaging. Our buckets are finding community, accessing resources, lifelong learning, and focusing on the future. These made sense for us based on our members and the previous member research we'd done on how they want to interact with NAGC. But yours could be entirely different. It's worth taking the time to do the research to understand your benefits from your members' point of view and group them based on what makes most sense to them. One more note on buckets. You all saw the slide of terror with 72 possible journeys. This is truly a scenario where less is more for both you and your members. Too many choices can overwhelm folks, so keep it brief and high level. Personally, I think 3 to 5 is the sweet spot, but if you're more ambitious than me and want to have an even more complicated onboarding journey path, by all means, you can choose your own adventure too. My next tip is how to make this work without losing your mind. We're going to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And I use this concept a few different ways in creating this campaign. First, with the benefits copy. It is well worth investing the time to get your copy right for each of your buckets of member benefits. Regardless of whether a member chooses finding community at the beginning or if they wait until the very end, the information I need them to know is the same. That means I'm using the same language for the Finding Community webpage and follow-up emails, no matter where in the timeline the member hits them. Once you're happy with that base copy for each of your buckets, then you can just make small adjustments based on your segments. In my case, Premier members are professional members. They're our majority, and so that bucket copy is what I build from. Any changes to my student and parent member messaging comes from that. Another area to recycle is the messages themselves. Remember how at the end of my Premier campaign, there were 24 potential journeys? That does not mean I need 24 separate emails set up for week 4. In fact, that entire tree that you can see on this slide can be accomplished with just 15 messages because we can reuse them. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what order I choose buckets 1, 2, and 3 in during the first 3 weeks. By week 4, I just need bucket 4. So in our Prop Fuel setup, that means one week 4 message covers 6 potential journeys to get to that point. My third piece of advice, if you're going to go down this path, is workflows are your friend. You've heard me mention workflows a few times. Ashley's spoken about them as well. This screenshot gives a snapshot of what some of our workflows look like on the back end. Based on what bucket a member selects, they're automatically shown a landing page, sent a follow-up message, removed from whatever campaign they're currently in, and placed in the appropriate campaign for the next step of their journey. Now, I'll be honest, this took some time to set up. It was perhaps one of the most time-consuming parts, but now that it's there, it's set it and forget it. So investing that time upfront in workflows means I'm free to focus on other priorities, not babysitting onboarding. And I know Ashley mentioned that too, of like freeing up your staff to work on other things. It's so important.
Yeah, let the humans do the human stuff.
Exactly, exactly. All right, so moving on to tip number 4, we're going to segment wisely. I think segmentation, it can be our best friend and our worst enemy, depending on how we approach it. You probably have a lot of member data that you could segment on, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should. We chose to segment based on member type for 2 reasons. One, there were some benefit differences between those groups that we needed to account for, but we also had, based on our ongoing member research, proof that there was substantive differences in what motivates those 3 groups to interact with NAGC. Now, within our Premier membership, that is our professional group, there are a lot of different job roles. We have classroom teachers, we have school administrators, higher education professionals, researchers, lots of different roles. And you could make an argument that maybe we should segment that group out by job role. But we didn't. Why? Because our member research right now just doesn't support the idea that there's enough difference in motivation based on job role to make it worthwhile doing so. We do a member needs assessment every year, so we're keeping an eye on it. Maybe the data will indicate that we should split out in the future, but I'm not going to overcomplicate something today if there isn't an apparent return on investment for the members or for the association. And with that, we've reached my 5th and final tip. Think about maintenance at the start. Undoubtedly, things will change in your association that impact your onboarding. You might add new benefits, you might get a new website and all your URLs change, so you have to change all your emails. You want to keep your onboarding fresh by having a maintenance plan upfront. For NAGC, we tend not to have major benefit changes often, so we made the decision to review our language twice a year. If nothing changes, great, it's a quick process and we move on. If it does, because we recycle the same base copy for all of our benefit buckets, it's actually pretty easy to go in and swap out the updated versions across the campaign. To make sure this happens consistently, we have it built into our project management system along with other recurring tasks within the membership team. As a side note, this is also a good opportunity to think about your annual cadence and schedule this based on when your team has bandwidth. We're on a September fiscal year, so there tends to be a lot of activity around September and March. In some ways, it's intuitive to do this when it aligns with your fiscal year, but if that's really busy for you, you don't have to. We also keep in mind our convention is in November, so there's no way I'm taking any time to look at this then. So we've intentionally scheduled to do this work off cycle, and that helps us by 1, ensuring we actually do it, and 2, making sure our team has the time and attention that this work deserves. And so with that, thank you for humoring me while I nerded out about Maslow, membership, and data, legitimately 3 of my favorite topics. Ashley, I think we're back to you.
Awesome. So Megan, great tips. A couple of things that I want to add to just yes, and the things you've already said is when you're thinking about maintenance at the start, something we always tell clients is try to stay away from like specific event dates because you don't know at what point the member is going to join and get these messages and choose that they want these messages. So really going back to what you said, Megan, about as you're bucketing stuff, think of events as the bucket. They said that's what they care about or that's what they want to learn about right now, and then push them out to your website where you know you're changing those event dates and keep the dates out of PropFuel. So that'll definitely help. And another thing, Megan, I don't think we had these when you built this out, unfortunately for you, but we now have blueprints. So what blueprints are, and I'm sure a lot of our clients are like shouting at the screen, like, I love blueprints, because what it is it's these pre-built campaigns that use AI as well as best practices that we, the humans at PropFuel, have put into these campaigns. To say this is what we've seen work for our 300 plus members or clients, that is. Now, we don't have a blueprint that goes this in depth, but the nice thing about those blueprints is once you run it, it's fully editable. So you're putting in your inputs and the system is building the campaign for you. And now you're going in and you have all of these questions, answer choices, workflows built out for you, and you can edit it. So it'll make it a lot easier to do what Megan's talking about, where then you say, well, actually, I want to pull this into this other campaign and I want to separate it here. And half the work's already done for you. So that's another tip I would give you all. All right, with that, so if you're interested in learning more, a couple of things you can do here. So on the left, we have the QR code where you can schedule a call with our team. So if this webinar has piqued your interest and you'd like to learn more, definitely scan that now. The other thing you can do, and why stop at just one, do them both. The other thing you can do is register for our next webinar. So that's going to be February 19th at 1 p.m. Central, I believe. And that's on developing learner personas with member insights. So what you'll do there is it's kind of discovering how one of our clients, VPPPA, used PropFuel to turn member feedback into real conversations, which in turn helped them gain valuable insight that shaped their conferences and created a more personalized, the word of the day, member experience. So we'd love to have you at that webinar. And with that, I'm going to go over to the chat while you all are, scanning those QR codes and see if there's any questions we can answer for you.
Ashley, I'm seeing one in the Q&A about, did we outsource any of the planning of this? And no, we did not. We are a small but mighty team, but also a very, I would say our team is very technologically savvy and data oriented. So this was a big project, but also a labor of love, so to say, because it really aligned with what our goals were as an association. So it takes time. I will say, in order to make it doable, I did all of the work of writing and kind of planning out what the path would be outside of PropFuel first. I believe I had Ashley look at kind of what I was picturing of like, gut check me, is this possible or am I being crazy? And then once we kind of agreed, like, within my team that the language worked, with Ashley that yes, this was feasible, then did the building. So the building itself actually went pretty quick compared to what it could have been because we did that planning in advance.
Megan, I see another question in here. It looks like Dave answered it, but where in the AMS is this information captured? So to Dave's point, so we're only writing back data specifically in PropFuel that you tell the system to write back to your AMS. So maybe if you decide to ask them to update profile fields that you just can't get people to log in and do, new member onboarding is a great place to do that. Megan, I'm wondering, did you all write anything back in your campaign?
So we don't have this writing back yet, but with PropFuel, you can pull those reports out. So that's what we're doing right now. One of our future projects, though, is to write this back because we ask very similar, what's your top priority questions in our renewal campaigns. And so my long-term goal is to have this be an evergreen, always updating field where, maybe my priority today is accessing resources, but my personal priorities have changed. The environment around me has changed. I might need something else at my renewal. And so I want to make sure I'm periodically capturing that. And to humor me, to go back to Maslow, one of the reasons from a human development standpoint why I love Maslow is because it's not linear. You can bounce around the different stages depending on the context around you. And I think that's a really important thing for us to remember as membership professionals as well. I may show up joining on day one with my act together and I'm ready to like go all in on volunteering and being on the board and presenting and all the things. But if a major disruption happens, like, oh, I don't know, that little pandemic a couple years ago where the nature of work fundamentally changed across industries, suddenly we're all back to kind of that basic needs place of how do I function? And so, again, another thing I really like about viewing membership through this lens is it doesn't lock you in on a specific path, but it really lets you be responsive to wherever your members are in that moment, in the context they're at.
Another one I just saw, Christina said, oh, I'm so sorry. It was Francis said, can you elaborate more on segmenting wisely and how not to do too much? Such a good question.
Yeah, so this is where the member research comes in really handy. When I started at NAGC, I did an initial member needs assessment, and the base of that survey we now rerun every year as part of our annual process. And that's really helpful so that I can look longitudinally for trends and changes over time. And we specifically set it up so that we can analyze that data on any number of features. So, member type is where we had differences show up this time, but we do take a look at the data by job role, by years in the field, by length of membership, all kinds of different demographic criteria that we can filter the data on and look at it, and then just evaluate, is this substantively different than the baseline for the established larger group, yes or no? So far, it's been no, so we've left well enough alone. But again, we're always open to the possibility that that might change in the future. I think where people can go awry with segmentation is trying to do all the possible permutations all at once. You will make yourself crazy. Maybe if you're with a really big association and you've got a really sophisticated marketing and membership team that can handle that, by all means. But like I said before, we're small but mighty. We do a lot for the size that we are, but there's always kind of that opportunity cost question of, if I keep drilling down, drilling down, drilling down to these finer and finer segments, is the return there? Yes or no? And if there is it worth pulling me away from this other thing over here that also needs my attention? So that's the balance for us. Where that tipping point is, I think, is going to be different for every association. But this approach to decision making around segmentation has been working for our team.
Okay, I love this question. Anita asked, any thoughts on using this to turn voluntolds into volunteers? I have some thoughts on that, Megan. I don't remember, did we do a question on volunteering in your journey?
It's for us, volunteering is within the focus on the future bucket for us, but we've actually also used Prop Fuel to build volunteer prospect lists. The other member of the membership team, she oversees most of our volunteers, and she uses it again to kind of build those prospects. This is a little bit of an aside, but for folks that are interested in turning those voluntolds into volunteers, I love that way of phrasing it. Something else that we've implemented with a online form system is recommendations. So, I could go on, and right now we're recruiting for our board of director nominations. I could go onto the website, and maybe I personally don't have time to serve on the board right now, but I know Ashley, and Ashley's great, and I want everyone to know she's great, and I think Ashley should be on the board. I can fill out this little form and say some nice things about Ashley, and then that automatically sends Ashley a message from NAGC saying, hey, your peer Megan said all of these great things about you and thinks you would be good for this position of the board. Here's all the information you need about it. Sends that to her, and then we also send that to our leadership development committee that kind of follows up on those nominations. It's a really nice way of getting folks that might not self-select into that, or who might look at a description for a role and be like, like, ooh, I don't know, that's me, or I can't hold my own in a room with all the big names in our field, when in fact, those are maybe some of the voices you need the most.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes your members the hero, right? So like when it's a peer telling another peer, hey, you should do this, and you're empowering them to do that, it makes them the hero.
Well, and the worst case scenario in that, like, say I fill out that form and Ashley gets the message and she doesn't have time to go through the board nominations process. That's fine. She still gets the nice little boost of, well, gosh, Megan thought enough of me to tell our national association how great I am. And then they turned around and told me all of that. Like, that is still a really valuable emotion driving touch point that it has value, even if it doesn't turn into Ashley nominating for the board this year.
Yeah, exactly. And Anita, to kind of answer your initial question on could you use this to, do a more basic question of, hey, are you interested in volunteering? As people raise their hand and say, sure, tell me more, you can tag them in Prop Fuel. So then later, if you do what Megan's talking about, where you do a, nominate somebody who you think would be great, you can then compare the two and you can say, hey, you told us you were interested, you haven't volunteered, this person thinks you'd be great, like, so you can really continue that conversation as well, so thinking through ways to do that. Let's see what else we have. If you see any, Megan, then just jump right in. Can you use Prop Fuel for different campaigns like onboarding and meeting messages? Certainly. So we like to refer to the campaigns that we see do really well in Prop Fuel as our foundational campaigns. And they really take your member all the way through their life cycle. So from the time maybe they're not aware of your organization, so kind of educating them on it, to when you're trying to get them to join, when they do join and you want to engage them throughout the year, up to renewal, which is what Megan was talking about. So it's so nice that you can pull people in and out of campaigns at different times to make sure that, things aren't overlapping and they're getting them when they should. And then after the renewal messages, if they lapse, winning them back, and then sprinkling in a few in there. I think somebody mentioned it earlier. So conference registration, conference engagement. So engaging people after they register for the conference to make sure they show up and they put sessions on their calendar. So anywhere that you could have a conversation in person, that's where you'll want to bring Prop Fuel in.
And as far as using some of those different campaigns, at NAGC, until recently, Prop Fuel's only been used by our membership team. We just got a new marketing director, so I expect that's going to expand soon. But it does make it so easy for member acquisition and renewal. Like I mentioned earlier, we use the same kind of what is your top priority, same language around the different buckets in all of our membership related campaigns. So I have one that's still running right now of non-members that attended our convention back in November. The very first thing we ask them is, what was your main reason for attending? And then based on that, we're again able to start feeding them information. The language is a little bit different because we're in acquisition mode versus onboarding mode, but it's the same core in all of these things. Likewise, in our renewal, one of the first questions we ask them is, what's your top priority right now? So again, we're getting that refresh, and it's just so helpful to get that of the minute snapshot of where your members are, and so you can pivot from there. One of the great things that we've been able to do with both acquisition and with renewals is, again, kind of address problems. Our folks are in education, budgets are tight, teachers are chronically underpaid. So there are some very real pain points there, and it is on us to show what they're getting for their money and that it's worth it, or introduce a solution if cost is a barrier. So we have in parts of our campaigns, what's stopping you from joining? What's stopping you from renewing? And if they select cost, they are instantly offered up a promo code to take a discount off of dues. Because from where I'm sitting, I'd rather give the dues discount and keep the member than lose them and have to start over with a new member. You know, we all know kind of the general wisdom that it costs more in terms of time, effort, money to get a member than it does to keep them.
Yeah, we call that at Propfuel. All of the client success managers like to say, don't be scared of the no. It's just another door the member is opening for you to have that conversation with them. So keep that in mind. Don't be scared of the no. All right, any more questions? If not, we'll let you all go. I know it's probably lunchtime in most of the country right now. Don't forget, if you're interested in scheduling a call with our team, you can scan that QR code on the left. And then if you want to register for our next webinar, we hope to see you there. You can do that on the right.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.